Aloha and welcome back to this week's episode of Live at the Legislature. I'm Kealoha Lindsay, your host for the House Minority. Joining us this morning is Representative Bob McDermott. He's a member of the House Special Committee on COVID-19 and represents House District 40, which is around Eva Beach. Representative McDermott, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. How are you?
Good morning, Kyle. How are you doing?
Doing well. Can you tell us first a little bit about your work on the committee this week, and then I'll transition on to the recovery plan that you're working on.
Sure. First, I want to thank the whole gang at Olelo for getting up early. They got to get up at dark 30 to put this whole thing together for the public. So I want to acknowledge them. They work hard and they don't get acknowledged. I want to say thank you, gentlemen, Mr. Graham and your team. Excellent. Excellent. Now you, Kyle, well, I don't know about you, but
I try my best.
You're a wonderful young man. So the committee is, my perception of it is it's a lot of good information coming out, but we're stovepiping in a sense. And I'm not sure what the direction or measurables we're supposed to ascertain. That hasn't been articulated. So a lot of good information you're hearing from everybody under the sun, from retail merchants to the University of Hawaii Economic Department to Peter Ho at the Bank of Hawaii. A lot of good information. And I guess as legislators, we're supposed to take that information, use it as a tool, and try and put some policy together. That's my sense of it at this point.
And so with that information, you're working on, with my boss, an economic recovery plan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, your boss and my big brother, Representative Ward, we see a need. We believe that the local economy by Memorial Day will be fully up and operational. We see our cases are down to 0 or 1 new case a day. So we've won that local battle. The question now is, how do we knowingly bring in infected people? I mean, that's once we open it up to tourism, we're going to knowingly bring in infected people. So give you an example. At the height of tourism, we're bringing in 30,000 people a day. Let's say we get to 1/3 of that, 10,000 a day, and only 1% are asymptomatic or positive with the showing no symptoms. Because this is highly transmittable, upon their arrival, they have the potential to infect up to 3 or more people. So now you have 300 from that 100 passengers in that one day, you now have 300 new infections, or 100 plus, 300 new infections. It will only take a couple of weeks or months before you see this spike again, which will be untenable. And the local people will know where the spike came from. It didn't come from Kalihi. It came from California, New York, Chicago, and they're not going to be happy. And then we're going to have to, I would hope David wouldn't roll into these protocols because it's not locally, it's being spread by incoming visitors. We rely on them for our economy, but we don't want the disease. So Rep. Ward and I are putting together a package where these passengers are tested 72 hours prior to departure to Honolulu. Now, we can't force them in another jurisdiction to do that, and we cannot impede their right to travel. But we can, once they get to Hawaii, we can tell them under the National Guard and with the governor's authority, because of a pandemic, you may not leave the airport unless you have proof you've tested negative or you take a test right now and test negative. If they test positive, then they're given to the National Guard and put in a real quarantine, a mandatory quarantine. It'd be a nice hotel with cable TV, air conditioning and everything, but they're not going to meander along the beaches like everybody else is, making a laughing stock out of this quote unquote quarantine because it's voluntary, which is no quarantine at all. So we have the opportunity to drive it to 0, manage it to 0. And then imagine the marketing, Kyle. Come to Hawaii. All of our employees in the Hilton Hawaiian Hotel have been tested and they're COVID-free. Travel on Hawaiian Air, COVID-free airline, 99%, 9% COVID-free. We test everyone. You can charge a premium for those tickets and people will pay for them, particularly if you're older than 60, because that's the high-risk group, right? So this is what we're working on. We haven't heard this articulated yet. And Gene and I have talk to airline leaders, tourism leaders. I listen to the committee meetings. You know, I'm doing a lot of talking today, but I find that with our 3 minutes left,
It's important.
That you can learn more with your ears open and your mouth closed. So at the committee hearings, I just listen, and I don't sense a path forward how they're planning to grapple with this next part, which is the visitor industry. How do we re-engage them without re-engaging the virus? So Gene and I are putting together a thumbnail sketch, a framework for that, because with two of us, we have the agility and nimbleness to do that. We're a committee of 50. You can't get them to agree on what time of day it is.
Are there examples of the contact tracing and rapid testing that's in your plan?
So Emirates Airlines is doing testing of all passengers as we speak prior to boarding. Now it's a little different dynamic. The travel volume is not as high, and they're loaded with money, and it's a much leisurely pace. But we're going to have to readjust because tourism is not going to go back to the way it was with our 2 minutes left. And I just want to say that we're not going to go back to tourism as the way it was. And, you know, maybe that's a good thing. We don't need 10 million people stressing our sewers, stressing the Nama Bay, stressing the traffic. It's like 160,000 cars 70,000 extra cars on Oahu a day when we have all our visitors. So it's a huge, huge number of folks. But if we can charge a premium for a COVID-free vacation, that's great. But it's not going to happen unless we test or require some sort of testing with enforcement.
With our probably now a minute and a half left, I wanted to ask you about the economic diversification aspect of it, because I think there's a big focus on that, trying to get away from tourism, but we also can't ignore the $17.75 billion that we get in visitor spending from last year to about $2 billion in tax revenue. So what do you think of that?
So you're absolutely right. But if we charge a premium, we can recoup some of that, not most of it or all of it, but a portion. But what we can also do, Kyle, is give us an opportunity to reset. And I don't mean this in a BS way. I mean, we now know we need to be self-sustaining in certain things. We don't have a dairy here. We should have a dairy in the state. We should have a couple slaughterhouses for pork and beef. We don't have anything. There's no reason we can't do that. We should have a fresh frozen factory down at the pier for the fishermen, so they can flash freeze their extra catch and don't have to sell it at a loss or anything. And we can do that, put an RFP out. The state will give the processor the land for free, provided they do X, Y, and Z, and then they work with the fishermen. We just have to get off our duff and do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Representative McDermott, any closing comments for our last 30 seconds?
Well, with 30 seconds left, I want to tell the Olelo guys that they've done a fantastic job as always. With me coming in at the last minute, you coming in, you guys are always, is he going to get on? Is he going to get on? He's disorganized. Well, you guys have all done great. I want to thank you, Olelo, Kaeo, Gene, everybody. Thank you. Aloha, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Representative McDermott. Everyone, we will see you next week. Aloha.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record live at the legislature on Olelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.